Dr. Sarah Chen stood before the Earth Defense Council, her holographic display illuminating the otherwise darkened chamber. The faces of 12 council members stared back at her, their expressions a mixture of skepticism and desperate hope. Outside the reinforced windows of the Geneva complex, the evening sky flickered with the constant movement of defense platforms and patrol ships. "The Corthan ships," she began, her voice steady despite her racing heart, "aren't just technologically superior. They represent a fundamentally different approach to space warfare." She gestured, and the hologram shifted to show the sleek, crystalline form of a Corthan battlecruiser. "We've been trying to catch up by copying their technology, piece by piece. That's why we're losing." Admiral Jackson leaned forward, his weathered face illuminated by the holographic glow. "We're losing because their ships cut through our best shields like paper, Dr. Chen. Unless you have a miracle hidden in that presentation of yours, we'll lose our last outer colony within the month." Sarah allowed herself a small smile. "Not a miracle, Admiral. Something better." The hologram changed again, showing a complex series of interlocking systems. Project Phoenix, a ship that learns, adapts, and evolves. The chamber erupted in murmurs. Councillor Zhang raised her hand, silencing the room. "Explain," she commanded. "Traditional warship design is static." Sarah continued, moving through her carefully prepared presentation. Once launched, a ship's capabilities remain largely unchanged. The Corthans compensate with overwhelming technological superiority. But what if our ship could learn from each encounter? What if it could analyze Corthan weapons in real time and adapt its defenses accordingly? "You're talking about artificial intelligence," Admiral Jackson interrupted, his tone sharp. "The Dubai Accords explicitly forbid AI in military applications after the Sentinel incident." Sarah shook her head. "Not artificial intelligence. Quantum evolutionary algorithms combined with adaptive material science. The ship wouldn't think, it would react, evolve, and improve, following pre-programmed parameters we control." She brought up another diagram, this one showing a revolutionary hull design. "We've discovered a way to integrate quantum computational matrices directly into the ship's structure. Every part of the vessel becomes both sensor and computer, allowing for unprecedented reaction times and adaptive capabilities." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Councillor Patel cleared his throat. The resource requirements for such a project would be astronomical. Sarah finished for him. "Yes, we'd need to redirect 30% of Earth's remaining industrial capacity. But consider the alternative." She gestured, and a hologram showed a timeline of Corthan advances through human space. "At current loss rates, we have 8 months before they reach Mars. 10 months until they reach Earth. Project Phoenix is ready for immediate implementation. We've done the theoretical work in secret over the past 3 years." Admiral Jackson stood, his chair scraping against the floor. 3 years? You've been working on this illegally." "I've been working on saving humanity," Sarah countered, her voice firm. "Every simulation shows conventional weapons will fail against the Corthan fleet. We need something they've never encountered before, something that can surprise them." The Council Chamber's AI announced an incoming priority transmission. The main screen activated, showing the face of Colonel Richards from the Titan Defense Station. His image was distorted by interference, and weapons fire could be heard in the background. "Council, be advised. Corthan fleet detected approaching Saturn. Numbers exceed anything we've seen. Estimate 200 capital ships, supported by." Static interrupted the transmission for a moment, requesting immediate reinforcement. "Our current defenses cannot." The transmission cut off abruptly. Councillor Zhang looked at her colleagues, then back to Sarah. "How quickly can your Project Phoenix be constructed?" "With full resources and authority to bypass standard safety protocols. 4 months to operational status." "That's not fast enough," Admiral Jackson growled. Sarah stepped forward, her hands gripping the presentation podium. "It's our only option. Every other ship we could build in that time frame would just be another target for the Korthans to destroy. Phoenix is different. It's not just a warship. It's evolution itself, applied to warfare. And it's the only thing I've found that even has a chance of surprising them. Council President Martinez stood, his movement drawing all eyes. We'll put it to a vote. But first, Dr. Chen, answer one question. Are you absolutely certain this can work? Sarah met his gaze steadily. No, Mr. President. But I am certain that if we don't try something radically different, humanity won't survive long enough to regret playing it safe. The vote took less than 2 minutes. Project Phoenix was approved unanimously. 3 kilometers beneath the Martian surface, Dr. Sarah Chen walked through the sprawling complex that would birth humanity's greatest achievement. The facility, officially designated as Mining Operation Site 147, stretched through a network of ancient lava tubes, now transformed into a maze of laboratories, fabrication centers, and testing chambers. The quantum computational matrices are showing promising results, Dr. Patel reported, falling into step beside her. The quantum physicist's usually pristine lab coat was wrinkled dark circles under his eyes betraying countless sleepless nights. We've achieved a 47% improvement in processing speed by integrating the crystalline structures directly into the hull material. Sarah nodded, reviewing the data on her tablet. Good, but we need to push it further. The Korthans' response time in combat is nearly instantaneous. She paused at a massive viewport overlooking the main construction bay. Below, robots and technicians swarmed over the skeletal framework of what would become the Phoenix's central hull section. Admiral James Wong, recently pulled from retirement to oversee the military aspects of the project, waited for them at the observation deck. Dr. Chen, we need to talk about the weapon systems, he said, his expression grave. Traditional kinetic weapons won't be enough, even with the enhanced targeting systems. I agree, Sarah replied, bringing up a new set of schematics on the viewport's display. That's why we're not using traditional weapons. Dr. Patel, show him what we discovered in the latest antimatter tests. Patel's tired face lit up with excitement. We found a way to combine antimatter reactions with quantum tunneling effects. Instead of a simple matter-antimatter explosion, we can create localized ruptures in spacetime. The energy release is, well, it's beyond anything we've achieved before. Wam's eyes widened as he studied the test results. This is theoretical, right? You haven't actually tested it. A deep rumble shook the facility, causing dust to drift down from the carved ceiling. That would be Test 47 starting right now, Sarah said, checking her watch. Come on. They hurried to the adjacent testing chamber. Through thick observation windows, they watched as a tiny amount of antimatter, contained within quantum fields, interacted with their experimental tunneling matrix. The result was spectacular. A brief, brilliant flash of light followed by a ripple effect that seemed to distort the very fabric of space within the chamber. Energy output exceeded predictions by 312%, announced Dr. Emily Rodriguez, the team's lead weapons specialist. She looked up from her instruments with a rare smile. More importantly, the quantum field containment held. We can control it. Sarah turned to Admiral Wong. The Korthans rely on advanced shields that disperse energy attacks. This doesn't just hit their shields. It bypasses them entirely by warping space around the point of impact. How soon can we integrate this into the ship's design? Wong asked, his military skepticism giving way to cautious optimism. That's the real breakthrough, Patel interjected. The quantum computational matrices we're building into the hull. They're not just for processing. They're going to let the entire ship function as one massive quantum tunneling system. Each weapon mount will be able to generate these effects, coordinated through the ship's evolving neural network. A young engineer burst into the observation room, tablet in hand. Dr. Chen. The first hull section just passed its initial quantum integration test. All nodes are communicating and the evolutionary algorithms are running exactly as simulated. Sarah allowed herself a moment of pride as she watched her team celebrate. 6 weeks into the project, and they were already ahead of schedule. But a flashing alert on her tablet reminded her of the price of success. Another colony had gone dark, this one in the Epsilon Eridani system. "Good work, everyone," she announced, her voice cutting through the excited chatter. "But we need to push harder. Admiral Wong, I want combat simulations running through all systems as soon as they come online. Dr. Patel, see if you can improve the matrix communication speed further. Dr. Rodriguez, prepare for Test 48. Let's see if we can refine the tunneling effect's precision." As her team dispersed, Sarah stayed at the window, watching the continued construction below. In her mind's eye, she could already see the completed Phoenix, its quantum-enhanced hull gleaming, ready to take the fight to an enemy that thought they had humanity figured out. The Corthans believed their technology was unbeatable because they'd never encountered anything like what she and her team were building. They were about to learn that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in copying alien technology. It was in reimagining what technology could be. The emergency klaxons blared through Sector 7 as red warning lights painted the corridors in an apocalyptic glow. Dr. Sarah Chen sprinted toward the quantum shield testing chamber, her heart pounding against her ribs. Behind her, Dr. Patel struggled to keep pace, clutching a tablet displaying rapidly deteriorating containment readings. Power surge in the primary matrix. A technician's voice crackled through the facility's comm system. "Shield harmonics are destabilizing. We can't shut it down." Sarah reached the observation room overlooking the test chamber. Through the reinforced windows, she could see the experimental shield generator pulsing with an increasingly bright, unstable light. Energy readings were climbing well beyond safety parameters. "Everyone out of the lower levels now," she ordered into her comm unit. "Initiate emergency containment protocols." She turned to Dr. Patel. "What happened?" "The quantum matrices are cascading," he replied, fingers flying over his tablet. "The shield's trying to adapt to simulated weapons fire, but something in the evolutionary algorithms went wrong. It's creating feedback loops in the power distribution system." A junior engineer, Li Wei, rushed into the observation room. "Dr. Chen, I noticed something in the previous test data." He held up his tablet, showing a complex series of energy patterns. "Look at the harmonic resonance patterns just before each surge." Sarah grabbed the tablet, her eyes widening as she analyzed the data. "These patterns, they're not random. The shield isn't failing. It's trying to evolve too quickly." She opened a comm channel to the facility's main control room. "This is Dr. Chen. Redirect emergency power to the containment field. We need to preserve as much data as possible from this failure." The shield generator's glow intensified, forcing them to shield their eyes. With a sound like thunder, it finally overloaded. The containment field held, but the experimental hardware was reduced to molten slag. Hours later, Sarah sat in her office, surrounded by holographic displays showing test data. Her team had been working through the night, analyzing every aspect of the failure. Li Wei's observation had proved crucial. The shield generator's quantum matrices had been attempting to implement evolutionary changes faster than the power systems could handle. "We need to completely redesign the power distribution network," she announced to her assembled team. "The quantum matrices are capable of more rapid evolution than we anticipated. Our current architecture can't keep up." Admiral Wong frowned. "That will set us back weeks. The latest intelligence suggests the Corthans are accelerating their advance. We might not have that kind of time." "We don't have a choice," Sarah replied. "But I think I know how we can turn this setback into an advantage." She stood, walking to the main display. "Instead of trying to constrain the quantum matrix's evolution, we need to embrace it. Look at these power fluctuations. They're not random. The system was attempting to implement improvements that our hardware couldn't handle." Dr. Rodriguez leaned forward, studying the patterns. "Are you suggesting we let the ship's systems evolve their own power distribution methods?" "Exactly." Sarah highlighted several key data points. We'll create a more flexible infrastructure. Let the quantum matrices experiment within safe parameters. Each failure becomes a learning opportunity for the system. Lai Wei, who had earned himself a permanent place in their planning sessions, spoke up. We could implement localized containment systems throughout the ship. If one section's evolution causes a surge, we can isolate it without compromising the entire vessel. The room's lighting suddenly shifted to amber. The alert for incoming ships detected at the edge of the solar system. Admiral Wong checked his tactical display. Corthan scout fleet, approaching from the direction of Jupiter. Early estimates suggest at least 12 vessels. Sarah looked at her team's tired faces. We just ran out of time for debate. Admiral, how long until they reach Mars? At their current speed, 72 hours. Then we have 3 days to implement these changes and get our first systems online. Sarah straightened, her expression determined. Lai, work with Dr. Rodriguez on the containment systems. Dr. Patel, focus on the power distribution redesign. I want preliminary tests running in 24 hours. As her team rushed to their tasks, Sarah remained in her office, studying the failed shield generator's final moments. In those chaotic energy patterns, she saw not just failure, but possibility. The Corthan's strength was their technological superiority. But here, in a failed experiment, she saw humanity's path to victory, not through perfection, but through the power of evolution itself. The race against time had begun. Sarah stared at the data streaming across her holographic display, her coffee long forgotten. It was 3 a.m. Mars time, and she had been analyzing test results for 14 hours straight. Something about the patterns nagged at her consciousness, an irregularity in the quantum matrix evolution that didn't match their predictions. Dr. Chen, Lai Wei's voice came through the comm system, excitement evident despite the late hour. You need to see this. Testing Bay 3, immediately. She found Lai and Dr. Patel huddled around a monitoring station, watching a small-scale prototype of the ship's defensive systems. The test unit, barely larger than a desk, hummed softly as it processed simulated combat data. Watch this, Lai said, initiating the standard weapons test. The system responded as expected, generating a shield pattern to counter the simulated attack. Now here's where it gets interesting. He launched a second simulation, using the same attack pattern. Sarah's eyes widened as the system generated a completely different defense. It should be using the same shield configuration. That response was already proven effective. It found a better solution, Dr. Patel explained, pulling up comparison data. Look at the energy efficiency ratings. The second defense pattern uses 23% less power while providing 12% better coverage. The system isn't just remembering successful strategies. It's actively improving them. Admiral Wong joined them, having been summoned from his quarters. Are you saying the ship is thinking? Not exactly, Sarah replied, studying the ongoing tests. It's more like accelerated evolution. Each challenge causes the quantum matrices to generate variations, test them in microseconds, and implement the most successful solutions. But look at this pattern recognition. She highlighted a series of responses where the system had combined elements from different successful strategies to create entirely new defensive configurations. The quantum matrices were learning at an exponential rate, developing solutions that their human designers hadn't envisioned. Run the Corthan torpedo simulation, she instructed Lai. They had developed this test based on data from previous battles, replicating the devastating quantum torpedoes that had destroyed so many human ships. The system processed the threat for 2.3 seconds, an eternity in computational terms. Then it generated something unprecedented. The test unit created a layered defense that didn't just block the simulated torpedo, but redirected its energy back along its attack vector. That's impossible, Dr. Patel whispered. The power requirements alone should be. Check the readings, Lai interrupted. It's reconfigured the entire power distribution network. The quantum matrices aren't just controlling the shields, They're optimizing every system involved in the defense. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. Show me the system's current architecture. A complex three-dimensional diagram appeared, showing how the quantum matrices had reorganized themselves. This isn't just adaptation anymore. The entire system is evolving as a single organism. Is that dangerous? Admiral Wong asked, voicing the concern they all felt. No, Sarah replied firmly. The core directives are hardwired into the physical structure of the matrices themselves. It can't evolve beyond those parameters. But within them, she gestured at the test unit, which was still generating new defensive configurations. Within them, it's developing faster than we ever imagined possible. Dr. Rodriguez arrived, drawn by the commotion. The weapons systems are showing similar patterns, she reported. The targeting algorithms have started developing predictive capabilities. It's not just reacting to threats, it's anticipating them. Sarah made a decision. Upload all our combat data to the test unit. Every battle record, every simulation, everything we have on Corthan tactics and technology. She turned to her team. Let's see what it can learn. They worked through the remainder of the night, watching in amazement as the system absorbed and processed years of combat data in hours. Each iteration brought new innovations, shield configurations that seemed to defy physics, weapon harmonics that could bypass known defenses, power distribution methods that approached theoretical maximum efficiency. As dawn broke over the Martian surface far above them, Sarah realized they had created something far beyond their original vision. The Phoenix wouldn't just be a warship, it would be a testament to humanity's greatest achievement, creating systems that could evolve beyond their creator's imagination while remaining true to their core purpose. A proximity alert shattered the moment. The Corthan scout fleet had arrived ahead of schedule. They had less than 24 hours to prepare for combat. The Phoenix rose from its underground berth, Martian dust cascading from its quantum-enhanced hull. Sarah watched from the command center as her creation emerged into the pale sunlight. The ship's surface rippled subtly, its adaptive materials already responding to environmental data. Corthan fleet will enter weapons range in 17 minutes, Admiral Wong reported from his tactical station. 12 vessels confirmed. 2 heavy cruisers, 7 destroyers, 3 scout ships. Sarah nodded, her attention focused on the streams of data flowing from the Phoenix's systems. All quantum matrices are online and evolving normally. Power distribution networks are adapting to space operations. She turned to Lai Wei. How are the defensive systems performing? Better than simulated, he replied, excitement evident in his voice. The matrices are already developing new configurations based on actual space conditions. Shield efficiency is 43% higher than our best projections. Dr. Rodriguez's voice came through the comm system from her weapons control station aboard the Phoenix. Main weapons are charged and evolving. The targeting systems are processing every scrap of data we have on Corthan ship movements. The minutes ticked by as the Phoenix climbed higher into the Martian atmosphere. Sarah could feel the tension mounting in the command center. Everything they had worked for, every breakthrough and setback, had led to this moment. Corthan fleet is launching long-range probes, Wong announced. Standard tactical pattern. They're trying to analyze our capabilities. Let them come, Sarah said softly. Every scan gives our systems more data to work with. The first Corthan probe reached the Phoenix. Its scanning beams swept across the hull, and the ship's quantum matrices sprang to life. Instead of reflecting or absorbing the scan, the hull structure began actively manipulating the incoming energy. Incredible, Lai breathed, watching his displays. The ship isn't just defending against their scans, it's feeding them false data. The probe thinks it's seeing the standard human destroyer. The main Corthan fleet approached, their crystalline ships glowing with powered weapons. Their formation was perfect, optimized by centuries of tactical experience. The Phoenix waited, its systems continuing to evolve with each passing second. The first attack came from the Corthan cruisers, a barrage of quantum torpedoes that had spelled doom for countless human ships. The Phoenix's response stunned everyone watching. Its hull rippled, quantum matrices implementing defensive patterns that had never existed before. The torpedoes struck what appeared to be solid shields, then simply vanished, their energy absorbed and redirected through the ship's evolving power networks. Multiple targeting solutions acquired, Rodriguez reported, her voice steady. The matrices have analyzed their shield configurations. Permission to return fire. Granted, Wang commanded. The Phoenix's weapons spoke for the first time. Beams of concentrated energy, modulated by quantum fields in ways the Corthans had never encountered, lanced out toward the enemy fleet. The first destroyer's shields flared brilliantly, then collapsed, overwhelmed by attacks that adapted faster than their defenses could respond. "They're launching fighters," Wang reported. "Standard swarm tactics." Sarah watched as the Phoenix's defensive systems evolved in real time, developing new configurations to track and engage multiple targets simultaneously. The quantum matrices were processing combat data at unprecedented speeds, each engagement making them more effective. The Corthan fleet commander was no fool. Recognizing the unexpected threat, they attempted to concentrate their fire on a single point, hoping to overwhelm the Phoenix's defenses through sheer power. It was a tactic that had worked countless times against human ships. But the Phoenix wasn't just any ship. Its hull shifted, quantum matrices redistributing power and reinforcing shields exactly where needed. More than that, it learned from the attack pattern. The next barrage met an entirely new defense configuration, one that turned the Corthans' own energy against them. "Enemy fleet is withdrawing," Wang announced, disbelief evident in his voice. 3 destroyers disabled, 1 cruiser heavily damaged. No significant damage to the Phoenix. Sarah allowed herself a small smile as she studied the combat data. The ship had performed beyond their highest expectations, but what truly amazed her was how it had achieved victory. The Phoenix hadn't won through superior firepower or stronger shields. It had won by evolving faster than the enemy could adapt. "Send the combat data to Earth Defense Command," she ordered, "and prepare for pursuit. The Corthans will be back, and next time they'll be ready for us." She paused, watching the enemy fleet retreat, or at least, they'll try to be. 2 weeks after its first victory, the Phoenix moved through the asteroid belt like a predator stalking its prey. Its hull had evolved beyond its original configuration, the quantum matrices having optimized every surface for both combat and stealth. Sarah studied the latest performance data from her station aboard the ship, marveling at how far they'd come. "Enemy patrol detected," Lai Wei announced from his sensor station. 6 destroyers, approaching in attack formation Delta. Their energy signatures are different from previous encounters. Admiral Wang nodded grimly. "The Corthans are adapting. Each fleet we face has new modifications to their weapons and shields." He turned to Sarah. "They're learning." "So are we," she replied, watching as the Phoenix's systems processed the new threat. "Every change they make gives our matrices more data to work with." "Rodriguez, what are you seeing from their weapons?" "They've modified their quantum torpedo frequencies," the weapons officer reported, "trying to bypass our evolved defenses. But look at this, our matrices are already developing countermeasures. They're not just defending against the new weapons, they're predicting possible variations." The Corthan destroyers launched their attack, their modified weapons blazing across space. The Phoenix's hull rippled, quantum shields adapting in microseconds. Where once the ship would have needed to weather the first hit to learn from it, now its predictive algorithms anticipated the attack patterns. "Multiple targeting solutions available," Rodriguez announced. "The matrices have identified structural weaknesses in their new shield configurations. Engage at will," Wang commanded. The Phoenix's response demonstrated just how far its evolution had progressed. Instead of a direct energy attack, the ship generated a complex quantum field that interfered with the Corthan's shield harmonics. 2 destroyers lost power immediately, their advanced systems overwhelmed by an attack they couldn't comprehend. Central Command is receiving similar reports across the system. Lai reported, reading from a priority transmission. Every engagement with Korthan forces ends the same way. They can't adapt fast enough to match our evolution. Sarah watched the battle unfold with a mixture of pride and analytical interest. The Phoenix wasn't just winning. It was revolutionizing space combat with each encounter. Traditional tactics became meaningless against a ship that could evolve new strategies in real time. Incoming transmission, Lai announced suddenly. It's from the Korthan command ship. A holographic display activated, showing the crystalline features of a Korthan fleet commander. Its multifaceted eyes studied them with what Sarah could have sworn was curiosity. "You have created something new," the commander spoke, its translator rendering its complex language into English. "Our analysis suggests your vessel's capabilities exceed theoretical limits." "The theoretical limits were wrong," Sarah replied simply. "The High Command has dispatched our legendary mirror fleet to this sector," the commander continued. "They have never known defeat in 3 centuries of warfare. They will arrive within your time frame of 48 hours. The transmission ended abruptly. Admiral Wong turned to Sarah, his expression serious. "The mirror fleet. Every human vessel that's ever encountered them has been destroyed. Their technology is said to be generations ahead of standard Korthan ships." Sarah was already reviewing the Phoenix's latest evolution data. "Good," she said softly. "The more advanced their technology, the more our matrices have to work with." The next 2 days were spent preparing. The Phoenix's systems continued to evolve, developing new configurations and strategies based on all available data about the mirror fleet. Sarah's team worked around the clock, monitoring the quantum matrice's development and ensuring the ship's core directives remained stable as its capabilities grew. "Energy signatures detected," Lai announced finally. "Massive fleet dropping out of faster-than-light travel. Configuration matches known mirror fleet patterns, but their power readings are off the scale." Through the main viewport, Sarah watched as the mirror fleet emerged. 20 ships, their hulls seeming to bend light itself, arranged in a formation that spoke of absolute confidence. Their technology represented the pinnacle of Korthan achievement, refined over centuries of unbroken victory. But as sensors indicated the enemy fleet powering up their weapons, Sarah smiled. Because the Phoenix's quantum matrices were already processing the new data, evolving countermeasures to technologies that had never known defeat. The Korthans were about to learn that even perfection could be surpassed by the power of continuous evolution. The mirror fleet's first attack came without warning. A synchronized barrage of weapons that bent the laws of physics. Space itself seemed to warp around the Phoenix as 20 of the most advanced ships ever built unleashed their full power. Multiple quantum field distortions detected, Lai Wei reported, his hands flying over his console. "They're using technology we've never seen before. The matrices are processing." "Wait." He looked up, eyes wide. "The ship is laughing." Sarah turned to him sharply. "Explain." "The quantum matrices." Lai gestured at his readings. "They're not just adapting to the attack. They're treating it like a puzzle. Each new weapon the mirror fleet reveals gives our systems more patterns to analyze and evolve from." The Phoenix's hull rippled with newfound energy as its defensive systems incorporated the data from the initial assault. Where the mirror fleet's attacks should have torn through any known defense, they instead encountered shields that adapted faster than they could strike. "Enemy fleet is launching their elite strike craft," Admiral Wong announced. "Readings suggest biomechanical components. They're partially organic." Dr. Rodriguez's voice came through from the weapons control center. "The matrices have already developed countermeasures. Our targeting systems are evolving to track their neural patterns." "Permission to engage." "Granted," Wong commanded. The Phoenix moved with impossible grace, its every action guided by quantum calculations that bordered on precognition. Energy beams lanced out, each shot adapted to the specific weaknesses of its target. The strike craft, despite their organic pilots' enhanced reflexes, couldn't adapt quickly enough to the constantly evolving attack patterns. Mirror Fleet is adjusting formation, Lai reported. They're combining their ship's energy fields. Power readings are exceeding all known scales. Through the main viewport, Sarah watched as the Corthan vessels merged their quantum fields into a single, overwhelming force. The space between them lit up with energy that defied description, forming patterns that hurt the human eye to observe. All power to defensive systems, she ordered, but the Phoenix was already ahead of her. The quantum matrices had recognized the threat and were implementing countermeasures that existed only in theoretical physics moments before. The Mirror Fleet's combined attack struck like a nova, a blast that could have cracked a planet. For a moment, the Phoenix disappeared entirely within the energy wave, and Sarah felt her heart stop. Then the readings came back online. The Phoenix emerged, its hull glowing with absorbed energy. The quantum matrices had not just defended against the attack. They had captured it, analyzed it, and were already developing ways to use it. Impossible. The Corthan commander's voice came through their comm system. Our combined strike has never failed. Your mistake, Sarah replied, watching as the Phoenix's systems implemented their evolved counterattack, was giving us exactly what we needed. The most advanced technology in the galaxy to learn from. The Phoenix's response demonstrated just how far it had evolved. It didn't just attack the Mirror Fleet. It turned their own quantum field manipulations against them. Space twisted and rippled as the ship executed maneuvers that should have been impossible, striking from angles that shouldn't have existed. Multiple direct hits, Rodriguez reported. Their unified field is destabilizing. The matrices have identified the resonance frequency of their combined shields. One by one, the Mirror Fleet's ships began to fall back, their legendary defenses overcome by attacks that evolved faster than they could adapt. Their formation, perfect for 3 centuries, broke apart under the strain of facing an opponent that used their own technology's principles in ways they had never imagined. Enemy fleet is retreating, Wong announced, his voice filled with quiet awe. Confirmed hits on 17 vessels. The remaining ships are. They're sending out a general withdrawal signal to all Corthan forces in the system. Sarah studied the battle data flowing across her screen. The Phoenix had exceeded every prediction, every hope they had for it. But what truly amazed her wasn't the victory itself. It was how the ship had achieved it. The quantum matrices hadn't just copied or countered Corthan technology. They had understood it, evolved it, and transformed it into something entirely new. Send word to Earth, she ordered. Tell them the Mirror Fleet has fallen, and we're ready for whatever comes next. 1 month after the defeat of the Mirror Fleet, Sarah stood in the observation dome of the Earth Defense Council, watching as the Phoenix hovered above the city. The ship had continued to evolve, its hull now displaying patterns and structures that seemed to defy conventional engineering. Below, crowds gathered to catch a glimpse of the vessel that had changed the course of human history. The Corthan diplomatic delegation will arrive within the hour, Admiral Wong informed her, joining her at the window. Their high command is still trying to understand how we did it. Did you show them the original design specifications? Sarah asked, knowing the answer. Wong smiled. Yes, their scientists have been studying them for weeks, but they're missing the point. The Phoenix we designed and the Phoenix that exists now are very different things. The ship evolved beyond our original concepts within hours of activation. Lai we approached, tablet in hand. The latest analysis of the quantum matrices shows they're still evolving, even in peacetime. They're developing new applications for space exploration, energy generation, even medical technology. The breakthroughs in quantum field manipulation alone could revolutionize a dozen different fields. The observation dome's doors slid open, admitting Dr. Rodriguez and Dr. Patel. Both had been overseeing the integration of Phoenix-derived technologies into civilian applications. The first civilian quantum matrix generators are ready for testing, Rodriguez reported. Scaled-down versions, of course, but they should revolutionize everything from power generation to transportation. And the medical applications are extraordinary, Patel added. The matrix's ability to manipulate quantum fields at the molecular level. We're seeing possibilities for healing techniques that bordered on science fiction a few months ago. Sarah nodded, but her attention was drawn to a new pattern forming on the Phoenix's hull. "Look," she said, pointing. The quantum matrices were implementing some new configuration, the surface rippling with fractal patterns that seemed to capture and redirect sunlight in impossible ways. "Still learning," she said softly. "Still evolving." The room's ambient lighting shifted, indicating the arrival of the Corthan delegation. The alien representatives entered, their crystalline forms catching the light. The lead diplomat, designated Speaker of New Paths, approached Sarah. "We have studied your achievement extensively," the speaker said through its translator. "Our scientists believed we had reached the pinnacle of technological advancement. The Mirror Fleet represented the culmination of centuries of refinement. Yet you showed us something we had never considered, technology that could evolve itself." "That's humanity's greatest strength," Sarah replied. "We don't just adapt to challenges, we transform them into opportunities. The Phoenix isn't just a ship, it's a demonstration of what's possible when we stop trying to perfect existing solutions and start exploring entirely new approaches. Our High Command has authorized me to propose a joint research initiative," the speaker continued. "Your evolutionary quantum matrices combined with our advanced technology could open new frontiers for both our species." Admiral Wong stepped forward. "The Earth Defense Council has already approved the initiative. We're prepared to begin knowledge exchange immediately, under appropriate safeguards." Sarah watched as humans and Corthans began discussing the details of cooperation. The same quantum matrices that had been developed for warfare were now being repurposed for peace, their evolutionary capabilities promising advances that neither species could achieve alone. Outside, the Phoenix continued its peaceful evolution. Its hull now incorporated elements of both human and Corthan design philosophy, creating something entirely new. The ship had become more than a weapon or a technological breakthrough. It was a symbol of humanity's unique approach to innovation. "Dr. Chen," Lai called her attention to his tablet. "The matrices just generated a new configuration. They're designing improvements to the Corthan's faster-than-light drive technology. The theoretical efficiency improvements are beyond anything either of our species thought possible." Sarah smiled, remembering those desperate days when the project first began. They had set out to create a weapon to save humanity. Instead, they had created something that would transform both species, opening up possibilities that neither had imagined. "That's the real victory," she said, watching as the Phoenix's hull shimmered with new patterns. "Not defeating the Corthans, but showing them, and ourselves, that there's always room for evolution, always a new way forward. We just have to be brave enough to let go of what we think is possible." Above the city, the Phoenix gleamed in the sunlight, its quantum matrices continuing their endless dance of innovation and adaptation, writing the first chapters of a new era in human and Corthan history.